Thank you for attending the Virtual Inspiring Abilities Expo. I'm Courtney and I'm Fuse's program coordinator. I'll go over a couple of housekeeping items real quick before we start. The session is being recorded, like you just heard, and it'll be accessible on our website and our YouTube page in the future. Please consider this when you share personal details about yourself or your family or ask questions. I'll ask that you remain muted unless you're asking a question. I'll be monitoring the chat box here. And also for those viewing through Whova, I will be monitoring any Whova questions as well. So please feel free to ask any questions as they come up. And I'll pass those on to our speakers when we have time. I am excited to welcome you to this afternoon session on disability advocacy. It's being presented by Hannah Carlock and Jennifer Nossinger. Hannah delivers a wealth of knowledge when it comes to working with elected officials. She has spent the past several years working alongside legislators, advising them on media and public policy matters. Jennifer is a graduate of the Indiana Governor's Council for Disabilities Partners and Policymaking Academy in 2017, and then she also presently serves on their board of directors. I will go ahead and let Hannah start first.
All right, thanks, Courtney. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So hopefully you can see it. All righty. So as Courtney said, I am Hannah Carlock and I'm the Director of Public Policy for the ARC of Indiana. And I actually just got back from a legislative conference in Florida this week. So I just got back today. So thanks for dealing with my very casual attire as flights were delayed this morning. I did not have time to put on makeup to conceal my bags. So thanks for having me here today. I'm very excited about talking about advocacy with legislators and hopefully making it a little bit easier on you guys. I lobby at the State House and on Capitol Hill in DC for the ARC of Indiana on behalf of Hoosiers with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And I've been working in different sectors of government for the past 6 years, which I just celebrated my 3rd year anniversary with the ARC of Indiana. My brother has autism. My cousin, who actually passed away, had Down syndrome. And then I have an adorable niece who's 3 years old, and she also has Down syndrome. So advocating for people with disabilities is very near and dear to my heart. So moving right along, I want to go over some objectives. So hopefully you guys have some takeaways. So I would like for you guys to gain some information and tips on forming those relationships with legislators at the State House or in DC and back home in their legislative districts. Learn how Indiana has successfully combined efforts to get the job done, because we actually get things done, where in DC it seems like they just argue a lot. And then just get some practical ideas that maybe you can implement either on a statewide basis or locally on building those grassroots advocacy efforts. So this past year, just to kind of talk about what the ARC of Indiana did this year and building our relationships and how we do things with legislators. So the question I get asked the most across the state is, who is a legislator and why do they matter to me? So legislators are the lawmakers that are elected officials that you guys vote for and put them into office on election day. And now it's their job to represent you either at the Indiana State House or in Washington, D.C. Senators and representatives are responsible in crafting and making laws we live by. So like how many days we have to go to school, why is it 55 miles per hour on the highway, and how much funding we get for Medicaid, home and community services each year, just a few things that they're in charge of. A major note I want you to take down is that legislators work for you. They are elected to represent you. So that is their job to do that to the best of their ability. And as we all know, some do better jobs than others, but that's in every industry, including the legislative industry. But as their constituents, also your job to let them know when things need to be changed and when things don't need to be changed. Because if they don't know, then they can't do their job to the best of their ability. So this year, the ARC of Indiana, our major legislative priority during this year's legislative budget session was to raise direct support professional wages. And direct support professionals are those taking care of people with IDD on a daily basis, bathing them, clothing them, taking them to work, helping them live in community and just live their everyday life. And the average wage across the state was, see here, $11.36 an hour. So that's a really tough job to do, especially when you can go to a Walmart or a McDonald's and make way more than that. And so they do a lot for very little pay. And so it's really hard for us to attract those and retain those high quality workers that we really need for our loved ones. But this wasn't the first year that this happened. So as we all know, government moves at a snail's pace. And so this wasn't the very first year that we asked for a wage increase for direct support professionals. Actually, in 2017, we had gone, the average wage was $9 and we had gone asking for a wage increase. And so then we actually got it up to the $11 an hour. We knew that that wasn't enough. We were grateful for that, but we continue to have to go back for more. So this has been a process for many years of us asking for this wage increase. But keep in mind, legislators are supposed to know everything about everything. They're supposed to be voting on bills that have to deal with sewage, alcohol, education, Medicaid. They have to know it all. And so it's very hard for them to understand all the nitty gritty details of each bill that they're voting on. So that's why there's people like me and then people like you that need to get involved and communicate with your legislators so that they know what actually and how actually they're impacting everybody. So a lot of legislators didn't know what a DSP was. That was my big goal this year, was to educate them on that, and also to educate them that they get paid differently than people at Target. So when the market goes up, Target can raise those wages. You can't do that with a direct support professional because it's paid through Medicaid. And so it was very eye-opening for legislators to learn that they're the ones that set those wages for direct support professionals. So they learned a lot this year about actually the impact that they have on that. And so we were successful in getting the statewide average pay for direct support professionals to $15 an average wage, which was an $80 million investment. But that took several years to actually get done. And it was based on the relationships that the ARC of Indiana has with legislators, as well as our chapters, our self-advocates and their families, really reaching out to legislators and getting to know them and having those conversations about how this really, really impacts them. So a little bit information about me. I used to work on staff for the House of Representatives as a communications person for 9 state representatives. And these are the staffers that help you get in and on the legislators' calendar and help make you a priority when it comes to everyone coming to them asking to get on the legislators' calendar. I've been working in the industry, as I said, for 6 years, and my boss has been in the industry way longer than me. So we have great reputations in the state house. But like any relationship you build, it's a great deal of work to maintain that relationship. So I feel like my job right now is to maintain those relationships. And I'm also not the only one reaching out to legislators and asking, like this year, for money. So if they only have 5 minutes on their calendar and they have that relationship with you and they have other people wanting that same 5 minutes on their calendar, but they don't have a relationship with them, they're going to, of course, make me a priority over them just because of that relationship. Because I hate to say it, my mom was right. It is all about who you know. And if an issue does come up, this works both ways. I'm asking them for things to pass legislation, but I also want them to ask me for things. I want them, I consider it a great honor when they come to me with questions and when they have constituent issues, because they trust me, they trust the ARC, and they trust our chapters across the state to help them find that answer. So I also want to be a resource to them. I want our chapters, I want people with disabilities that I work with to be that resource to them as well, because I want them to also have those relationships and be a go-to person. So that's how we really work inside the State House, and how we work to engage individuals across the state. And really this year we did a lot about maintaining those relationships, especially after they gave us so much money. And I want to make sure that even so, legislative session technically kicks off in 2 weeks later this month, but it usually goes January through like April, January through March this upcoming year, depending on if it's a budget session. And I don't talk to my friends just a couple months out of the year. I talk to them on a weekly, monthly, daily basis. To maintain that relationship. So that's the same thing with legislators. So we're trying to maintain those relationships. And so I just can't talk to them during session. I talk to them throughout the year. So that's one reason why I went to this legislative conference this week, was to build those relationships. I got to, meet their families, because they like to bring families along, because it's kind of like a paid vacation for them. So I got to meet their families, get to know them on a more personal basis. And so that's what we were also doing once we got out of session, since they did make such a huge investment into the direct support professional workforce. We wanted to do more of like a thank you tour. And so I reached out to all 43 of our chapters across the state in Indiana. And we had some of our chapter executives, they would put on an event, and they would have their staff, board members, direct support professionals, families, as well as self-advocates there. And so they'd be in charge of getting all that together, all logistics. Sometimes we would have, coffee and pastries, because everybody likes free food. And it was my job to bring the legislators to the table. So it was a great way to say thank you. Legislators always like photo opportunities, especially during an election year. So keep that in mind. But it was a great way for us to just say thank you. This wasn't an ask kind of session where I feel like legislators, they either get complaints all the time, or they get yelled at a lot. This was us just wanting to say thank you for making us a priority, and they really enjoyed that. And I really think that legislators, seeing self-advocates and the staff and the families that they greatly impact with those decisions that they made in investing $80 million into us this past year, really had an eye-opening impact. Because it's one thing for me to say things at the State House, because they see me and they know me every day, but it's a whole nother thing for a constituent to reach out to them and they put a face to an issue, so they know it's happening in their district. And it's way more impactful when you see somebody that has a really good story about something that's happening, good or bad. So clearly this was a good thing, raising those wages, but it's also good to hear some of the bad, so that they know it's like, okay, we got to get this taken care of. And so while we're saying thank you and on this listening tour, we can hear some of the things. They go to tour our facilities, our different provider chapters, to see what they're doing and how they do things with people with disabilities in the community, and how they really impact them, and what those dollars that they put and invested into the workforce, what that's actually going towards. And so they got to see all of that and tour that. And while we're just there having conversations on a tour, they hear some things that are working. So it's like, okay, don't touch that, don't mess with that. But here's another thing that's not working, like this vehicle, it keeps on breaking down. And if it was an accessible vehicle, it'd be counted a lemon because it just keeps on breaking down. Well, Indiana's lemon law doesn't cover accessible vehicles. Well, I didn't know that. the legislator didn't know that. And so that's something that we have on our agenda for next year. So it's not only a great way to say thank you, but it's just a great way to hear some things that are going on just back in the district for us to take back and fix for the next year. And so just some ways that you guys can engage on a more grassroots level, because I feel like that is where the nitty gritty stuff actually happens, where the boots meet the road and the work actually gets done is in the grassroots efforts. So any kind of outreach to legislators on the local level would be a grassroots effort. So just some event ideas would be candidate forums, especially as we're approaching an election year, any like education or any kind of issue that you're educating a legislator on, or a specific issue session that you want to have, bring them to the table about. And then I'll talk to you a little bit later about kitchen table conversations. And then just calls to action, just always having a call to action out there, just staying involved and engaged, whether it be something on the national level or the local level. So here are just some examples. Our candidates forum, we invite all the candidates that are on the ballot in different areas of the state. And that could be, city council, state, federal. It doesn't always have to be a state legislator. It can be, the local school board or the local city council. And then we always give them time, the candidates, to actually talk, 3 to 5 minutes about their platform. And then myself or one of our CEOs talk about our issues and just to educate them on that. And then we do have a question and answer session, just so that people in the audience can see, okay, what candidate is going to best represent us. So it's always important to have a team, because I can't do things by myself. So we try to always have a moderator. We try to invite the media, photo opportunities. Just a word of advice, we always try to do it after the May primary, because before that, the legislators are usually in session. Then it's the May primary. And then during the summer months, like June and July, is when they're doing all those different parades and fun festivals that are happening in the summer. And then August and September, that gives them time to make time for you on their calendar before the November election. So we usually try to do it in those late summer, early fall months. And then we always have an agenda, and we always try to leave with a call to action. So just some issue-related forum ideas, just anything around creating public awareness about an issue, a position that our organization is really pushing, and we want to make sure that we're a resource on that issue. Or if they have an idea, like a legislator has an idea for a bill, they come to us to say, what are your thoughts on this? Is this going to really screw things up for you guys, or is this a good idea? And then, of course, any type of informational session that educates them, and then always creating that momentum with a call to action, like, hey, can you do this for us? Can you do this bill for us? Or what can we do for you? Do you need us to reach out to self-advocates? Do self-advocates need to do something for you? Do families need to do anything for you? This was more of like an issue-related forum. So this was a statewide event, and this was around the Affordable Care Act and how it really impacted Medicaid. And so we had speakers ranging from the Lieutenant Governor. We had families that were impacted, and we also had a panel of legislators and some insurance providers, and then some providers of services. So we try to have everybody on every different angle of this issue be some sort of speaker or on a panel, just because we all need to be collaborating on this issue. And so this was a statewide event, and there are many ways to have grassroots efforts via email, a postcard, social media blast. But that was just one specific thing that we did a grassroots issue on. This is actually one of my favorite kind of events that we do, is a kitchen table conversation. It's very informal, but it is, you do have to have some logistics around it, just so that we're not all, racing around, not knowing what we're doing. But we usually offer coffee and pastries for free because, as I said, free things usually bring more people out, especially legislators. They love free things. But especially like in Bloomington, Indianapolis, Evansville, those more metropolitan areas, even like Terre Haute, they have multiple legislators in that area. And so we invite, it's my job to invite all those legislators there. And then we usually work with one of our chapters or an organization in that area to bring families, board members, self-advocates out to this event. And then we put them at a table pretty much with their legislator that from their area. So we know what their addresses are. So we put them with their specific legislator that represents them. And I feel like this is more impactful because when you're in a room of 20 to 50 to 100 people, it's really hard for us to, I mean, it's nerve-wracking for me to get up in front of people and ask questions. And so I feel like you get more candid conversations and candid answers from legislators by putting them in groups of 5 to 6 with their constituents. And so we always do this before the legislative session, just so that we get some issues on top of mind for legislators of what we're looking at for the next session, but it keeps us fresh in their mind too, that it's like, okay, I remember hearing about this issue. I need to talk to Joe and Susie from my district because they brought that issue up while we were having this conversation. And of course, last year we did it by Zoom and it was easy to do that with breakout rooms. So just an easy way to start all of this advocacy is just at different events that you're at, collect the names and contact information at the events and add them to your mailing list. We always utilize that information and not only add it to our mailing list, but we also add it to the Arc of the United States mailing list so they see what's happening at not only the state level, but the national level, and include them on our social media. And then we always provide links for our advocacy pages, especially our Advocacy 101 pages with the Arc of the United States and the Arc of Indiana. We also provide information on how to find your legislator. You just put in your address and it pops up every legislator that represents you. So that's very convenient. And then I know social media has been easier and easier to navigate, but just creating something so everybody knows, like, we act Wednesdays. On Wednesday, here's something that you can do to stay involved. I'm not saying contact your legislator every Wednesday because I don't want them to get annoyed with us, but just something to keep you engaged. Lastly, I'll wrap it up with a statewide event that we always do, and some of you guys might have heard of this or seen it, but it's very popular. It's our Valentine's Day event at the State House. And it is a logistical nightmare. It's like herding cats, but it's totally worth it. So we have around 250 self-advocates and families show up to the State House, and we put on a Valentine's Day event in a nutshell. So what we do is about 4 months in advance, our government affairs committee comes up with a theme for the Valentine's Day event. And then in January, I blast it out to everybody saying, this is what our theme is. And that gives families and self-advocates and all of our chapters time to make Valentines and goodies for their legislators. And then it's my job, as they're making those Valentines, because I am not an arts and crafts person. It's my job to get the speakers for it. So we reach out to legislators, we reach out to the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, all the statewide elected officials, and then the Office of Medicaid and an FSSA that really deals with our Medicaid services and supports. And we bring them all together. So when people travel from, Gary, Indiana, or Elkhart or Evansville, they're actually getting their money's worth out of that day and traveling to come down or up to the State House. And so I put together an itinerary and I send it out to everybody. And I also send out a map of the State House, where parking is, where the accessible entrances are. And And then also just a map is like, okay, the bathrooms are here at the State House, the very important things. And then I also give them some information about where lunch is, where they can get lunch and stuff, because transportation is on their own as well as lunch, but then we provide the rest. And so it's a great day. Every time I meet with legislators, I'm already getting asked, when's your Valentine's Day program this upcoming year? They love it. Every time I meet with legislators, I see our Valentines up on their walls, and it's great to see that they love this so much. And this is more of a thank you event, just so they know that this is who you're impacting, and to keep us fresh on their minds. Some of our Valentine's themes was we are the heart of the arc. Include us in your hearts. And then we also had a very specific, when we were asking for direct support professional wage increases, we said DSPs, the heart of it all. And so that theme is what all the Valentines were around. And so as you can see in this picture, the Lieutenant Governor spent some time with us, and those are some of her handmade Valentines with self-advocates. And it was just really great that they can get some face time with all of their elected officials, as well as they can ask the hard questions to Medicaid, because Medicaid is a tough, and gain a Medicaid waiver and all of those services. It's really, really tough, and it's complex. And so they might just have some questions about that, but the staff at Medicaid and DDRS and FSSA, they really do take time to try to answer those questions that day. So it is a very long day, but it's super fun. And I feel like we get a lot of good out of it, because every year we get asked about it. Last year we did do Zoom, so it was more like a week of Valentine's Day programs with some speakers each day. And just at the legislative conference this week, I was asked, are you guys going to be coming there in person? Because we really enjoyed seeing you guys take over the State House. And we're not the only people that do this. Lots of other associations have advocacy days, but I feel like we're the ones that are loved the most, because we do bring goodies and smiles and love to the State House. So I'm happy to take any questions that you guys have. If you can't think of any right now, here's my email. I'm happy to help you guys with any advocacy questions you might have, if you want to bounce off ideas from me. But just grabbing a cup of coffee with a legislator in your area, or coming to Indianapolis to see them at the State House, is really huge. They love to meet with people at the State House from their district, but they also like to meet with you in their area where you live as well. So just let me know how I can be a resource to you guys.
Hannah, we do have one question via Huva. How do we start advocacy within our community? Who should we contact first? That is a big question. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, so if you are involved in any organizations in your community, they probably have some sort of connection there. If you want to email me, I can help connect you with an organization in your community. Specifically, the ARC of Indiana has chapters all across the state that provide, we're not in every county, but we do provide services to every county in Indiana. So I'm happy if you want to reach out to me, and I can even make that connection for you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Unless you have anything else you'd like to share, I will go ahead and turn it over to Jennifer.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for having me.
Jennifer is on the board of directors for the Indiana Governor's Council for the Disabilities. She also graduated from the council's Partners in Policymaking Academy in 2017, as did Sarah and as did myself. So that program is really near and dear to all of us. So Jennifer, if you could just explain a little bit about what the Governor Council is and what they do, and then a little bit about Partners in Policymaking for people that might be interested in being in a future class.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. The Partners in Policy is a base program that started in Minnesota with the Governor's Council of Developmental Disabilities. It is a program that is statewide through the United States and overseas. We have a limited number of people that come to Partners in Policymaking. It's about 35 Hoosiers, and it is for people with disabilities and their family members. The Academy graduates are committed to the life changes of the program. You learn different things in the 8-month sessions. You learn about history, education, state and local policy, best practices, federal policy and legislation issues, community organizations. It is a leadership training program, and it's for adults and parents with children with disabilities. It teaches leadership skills and techniques, and you develop positive partnerships with elected officials, school personnel, and you learn about policy decisions. The Partners in Policies, the Governor's Council brings in speakers that speak to you from all different organizations around the state, and you build those relationships with those people. Like I said, it goes from October through May. It runs every other year, and it's all day Friday and all day Saturday. It's usually outside of Indianapolis. It's usually every other year. But since COVID happened, the program is on hiatus as of now because COVID's still out there. And so we have no idea when we're going to start the program back up. Now, the Governor's Council that I serve on the board with, we improve the lives of people with developmental and other disabilities in Indiana by funding grants, influencing public policy, training people with disabilities and their family members so that they can learn how to communicate and advocate in their communities. We work to make sure that people with disabilities live independent and productive lives in their community, and that they get the support and services that they need so that they can maximize their potential. The things that we have over 130 policies and programs that we've created on the council. We create a 5-year plan that we follow, and that is also open for public comment. We actually just closed our 5-year plan. It ended in 2001. Our new one starts in 2002 through 2006. It actually started October 1st of this year, and then it ends September 30th of 2026. And we set many goals up. You can look on that, our 5-year plan on the GCPD website. And I can give that to Sarah and Courtney if you want to look at that. Our mission statement for the Indiana Governor's Council is to advance social and policy changes that lead to respect for the meaningful and inclusion of people with disabilities and their family. And our vision for the council is for Hoosier communities that will be accessible, inclusive, and respectful of all people with disabilities. There have been over 600 Hoosiers that have graduated from Indiana Partners in Policymaking since 1991. And like Sarah and Courtney and I, we're all graduates and we all serve in different organizations. There's a lot of us out there that also teach the leadership skills that we have learned, and we developed positive relationships with our elected officials, and some of us serve on school boards, some of us are on other boards. We're heavily involved in council projects and just advocating for better services and advocacy groups. Courtney, do you have any questions?
So Jennifer, to those who don't know you, you are a mom to a kiddo with a disability.
Yes, I am. Sorry, I forgot to say that. Yes, I am a mom to a child with a disability. I am also a daughter of a dad who has a disability, and I have a cousin who has an intellectual and developmental disability.
As a mom, what's the biggest takeaway you got from Partners? And I know that's a hard one because it would be hard for me to answer too.
Yeah, I have learned a lot about advocating for my son. I think there's a right way to advocate and a wrong way to advocate. And I think by doing it the right way, because we have learned about, you know, first person language and learned how about policies and programs, you know, and we've learned how to advocate in a positive way so that our community leaders and legislators and mayors and elected officials will listen to us.
And I'm sure Hannah appreciates that when she has families talk to legislators that we're doing so in a really educated, respectful manner.
Mm-hmm. And when you join Partners in Policy, you also get to see what the other agencies and organizations are going through and what they're experiencing. And you're able to just ask them questions informal because we sit down and have meals with them. And so we're allowed to, you know, ask them things that, you know, you normally wouldn't get the chance to do. And they're pretty nice and honest, and they give you answers. And so you get to see what they also go through as well.
We had this question through Huba, and I'll ask you again too. From your perspective as a mom, how would you suggest someone start advocacy within their own community? Should they contact first? Have you done much advocacy before you joined Partners? Because obviously we would suggest everyone apply for Partners, but that's not a possibility right now.
Right, I did. I started with organizations that affected my son. So like I went through the NIC unit support group that he was in. I also chose organizations and agencies that he was involved in. Rosie's Place is one of them in my area. I also got involved. I'm trying to think. I also got involved in ADEC and Loveway, and learned about advocating and put my girls in SIB shops. And then that's when I started my network. And then people were like, "Oh, you like advocating, you know, but you could learn so much more through Partners in Policymaking." And like, I'm a graduate, and here, join, you'll learn a lot. And that's when, you know, you're develop like this whole world, and you learn all about the state and programs and the federal policies. And so that it helps expand your horizons.
So Hannah and I, and a lot of people watching, live in central Indiana. So we're close to the State House, but you are up in the northern part of the state. Is it easier or harder or different advocating when you're further away from some of from the seat of government?
It's harder. It's harder because we're about 3 hours away from the State House. So it is quite a drive to go down there. And it feels very isolated up here because our programs are extremely limited and we're in a very rural area, but there are lots of people who have disabilities up here in northern Indiana. But trying to get the services and the things that we need is very difficult because a lot of the organizations up here are limited. I mean, if your child has epilepsy, you're pretty much out of most of the programs up here. So they won't touch it. So there's other agencies that are starting off and they're trying to get built up, and they're going down to Indianapolis to try to get the help that, you know, we need up here, but it's a fight. I mean, there's one agency that's been working on this for 15 years to try to help kiddos like my son who have epilepsy so that he can get the services that he needs.
That's a good point I thought of, that when we select candidates for Partners in Policymaking, we do try to make sure we have people represented from all over the state because the issues really are so different.
Yeah. When I joined Partners in Policy, there's actually 3 of us from the same town, which was odd, but we are all over everywhere. We've had a couple of partners up here in the northern Indiana, but they all moved to other states because of, changes in their life or, you know, other services that they needed. So
one thing that partners teaches us is not just how to advocate for ourselves or our own children, but to advocate systemically for all people. Can you think of an example of how you've used what you learned in partners to advocate for someone besides your own son, or someone whose needs are very different than your son's?
Yep. I actually advocated, I took my son to a theater and we got treated really poorly and they actually took his wheelchair away. It was a bad situation. So
I
when
remember that, like, it was pre-COVID, but
Yep,
not
it was
long, right?
pre-COVID. It was several years ago, but I advocated for also him, but I also advocated for others that have, you know, hard of hearing or vision, so that they could sit up close to the stage and be able to see the theater, or that they could get the closed captioning that they needed, or, you know, whatever devices. Their website was worded inappropriate. It wasn't using first person language. It wasn't accessible. So those are some things that I worked with the organization, the theater, and they were great about changing it. They were like, yes, help us, help give us the tools that we need. And so I did that with a couple of other partners in policy, because we're like a group. We are really strong. We stay with each other and we help each other out when needed. So we all joined in together and helped turn it around for up here. And now it is quite successful. I've heard people that have go to the theater and they just love it now. And the theater is just absolutely great about helping people out that have disabilities.
The two Fuse founders, Denise Arland and Amy Borgman, also graduated from Partners in Policymaking. So it kind of goes full circle that they learned these skills, they started nonprofits, and then now Sarah and I do the same thing. And we have Partners in Policymaking graduates who, like you and Denise, who serve on the council, who work for other nonprofits, who start nonprofits. We're all kind of everywhere doing our thing. So if someone's interested in doing more for their community and more for their state, I always tell people, like, it's absolutely life-changing, and to apply for partners.
Yes, it is. And it's such a bummer that it's not going on right now and that it's in a hiatus, but when it comes back, it will be stronger than ever. And I'm sure we'll get lots of applications and it will be phenomenal. So I'm excited for it.
Me too. Like, it's competitive too. Like, there are some really great people all over the state doing really great things that want to do more. So that's always, like, it's inspiring. Like, it seems like sometimes the work is, there's too much work and there's too much that needs to be done, but then there are so many of us and so many more coming up every year who are interested, that like the load is like spread between so many of us.
Yep. It really helps when you have a team, and I have a team of people, and I love it because we're like a network of information. I mean, when any of us have a problem, we go to each other and we ask each other, you know, how do I solve this? What resources are out there? You know, what can I do? And we all jump in and we help each other out. I mean, that's phenomenal. And you're learning so much about other people's disabilities and other different family lives, or other people with their disabilities. I mean, you're just filled with so much knowledge. And when you go to on a weekend of partners in policy making, you learn so much. I remember that, like, on Sunday and Monday, I just wanted to like sleep all day.
Yes.
Learned so much.
Yeah, absolutely wiped on Sunday.
You're like, how can I absorb all of this? But you know, you keep learning it over and over again, and eventually it just comes natural. You just learn it.
And we all graduated 4.5 years ago, but it's amazing how many of us are still in touch. Like, even with COVID, not being able to do things in person or come down for the conference, we're still all in touch with each other.
Yep, I think there was, the last conference we had was in 2019, and there was quite a bit of us that were still there and past partner grads too. I mean, we've learned from them also and gotten to know them, and we all network and help each other out. It just feels like a big family.
Yes.
You know, we're all close and we all communicate and help each other out. It's nice.
Is there anything else the council has going on right now you'd like to tell us about?
The only thing that we have going on is we finished our 5-year plan. We got the state's, the public comments on it. It was great. There was transportation was probably the #1 issue. You know, not much that we can do there, but we're working on it. We're trying to think of creative resources and things that we can do. We are working on different competitive grants for the state. So it's exciting. We have some exciting things coming on, and once COVID goes away, you know, hopefully we can
That's what we
get
all
back
have
out
to say.
there and have our conferences and have partners in policy making again and see everyone again.
I just don't know that it would be the same if partners was virtual.
No, there hasn't been any plans to make it virtual. I think
I
it's
know
too
in some
much-
states they do like a virtual version, but it feels like we would miss so much of what we got out of it.
yeah, I
The
think
connections we all had with each other.
it would be really hard to learn everything virtually. So it's not an option we have thought about. We really see coming together and getting together as a huge benefit versus virtual.
I'm going to check one more time for any questions.
Mhm.
So now's your time to ask them. I don't see any questions left in the chat box on Huva. So I am going to go ahead and say thank you to both our presenters for taking time out of their Friday afternoon.
Thank you.
And thank you everybody that watched and everyone that's going to watch this recording in the future. And so that's it on our day of learning at our conference. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you for
Good to
having
see
me.
you again, Jennifer. Good to have you,
Good to see
Hannah.
you. Bye.
Courtney.